You know that feeling, right? The clock hits midnight on New Year's Eve and bam, it feels like anything is possible, a totally clean slate. And that feeling is exactly what sends millions of us pouring into gyms, armed with hope and a brand new membership. But what's the real science behind this whole ritual?
So here's what we're going to break down. First, we'll look at the sheer scale of the January gym rush. Then we'll dive into the psychology of the fresh start effect. We'll explore why it works so well on our brains, but also uncover the big reason most of our resolutions completely fall apart. And we'll wrap up with how you can actually use all this science to set way smarter goals.
All right, let's kick things off with the January gym rush itself. You see, to really get what's happening inside our heads, we first have to look at the hard data. This isn't just a vibe, it's a massive, predictable trend that happens like clockwork every single year. I mean, we've all seen it, haven't we? Every treadmill is taken, there's a line for the weights, and then you blink and it's mid-February and everything's back to normal. Well, this explainer is all about answering that one single question.
Okay, get ready for this number. The scale of this is just wild. In January 2024 alone, almost 5.5 million Americans were online searching for a gym. This isn't just a few ambitious people, it's a literal tidal wave of motivation sweeping the country.
And if you were to graph that tidal wave, it would look like what researchers call the inverted V. You get this huge 21% spike in interest right as the year starts. But almost just as fast, it's followed by a massive 18% drop. It's the perfect picture of our motivation shooting up and then crashing down. So what causes that initial spike? Well, that incredible peak is caused by a powerful psychological trigger called the fresh start effect. The secret isn't just about the date on the calendar. It's about how our brains are fundamentally wired to respond to the idea of a new beginning. And look, this isn't just some pop psychology concept. We're talking about serious, groundbreaking research published in the journal Management Science that's actually given this whole phenomenon a name and a scientific backstory. And that name is the fresh start effect. The big idea here is that certain dates, which scientists call temporal landmarks, act like a giant mental reset button. They give us this powerful feeling of a clean slate, which in turn motivates us to go after our biggest goals. And these landmarks? They're everywhere once you start looking for them. It's not just January 1st, it's the start of a new week on a Monday, the first day of the month, your birthday, or even the start of a new semester at school. Every single one gives our brain a permission slip to start over.
Okay, so why do these fresh starts have such an iron grip on our imagination? Well, it turns out the effect works by playing two really clever tricks on our minds that let us draw a line between the person we were and the person we want to become.
And here's trick number one, and it's kind of brilliant. Our brain does this little mental accounting maneuver. That landmark date allows us to take all our past mistakes, the diets we quit, the workouts we skipped, and file them away under the old me. That person is in the past. But the new me, that person feels different, superior even, way more capable of sticking with it this time. The second trick is that these fresh starts pull our heads up out of the weeds of daily life. For a moment, we stop thinking about how tired we are or how much effort it takes to go to the gym. Instead, we start thinking big picture about our long-term health, our future, and the person we really truly want to be.
Okay, but this is where the plot thickens. If this fresh start effect is so powerful, what on earth explains that 18% drop? Why are the treadmills suddenly empty again in February?
This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? We feel this incredible, almost superhuman motivation, but then something always seems to get in the way. And that something is a fundamental conflict that's happening inside all of our heads. This quote from economists O'Donoghue and Robin it absolutely nails the problem. Our brain is wired for right now. It wants the immediate reward, like staying in your warm, comfy bed, and it wants to avoid the immediate cost, like a really tough workout. And it wants those things even though our long-run self would be so much happier if we just got up and went. In behavioral economics, there's a name for this. It's called present bias. It's our built-in human tendency to value a small, immediate reward way more than a bigger reward that's far off in the future. It's basically the scientific term for the self-control problem. So think of it like this. There are two different versions of you at war. Your short-term self is the one that hits the snooze button 5 times. But your long-term self is the one who set the alarm in the first place. The fresh start effect gives a megaphone to your long-term self. But every single morning, your short-term self gets a vote. And this internal battle, well, it has some pretty stark real-world consequences. Data from Forbes shows that only about 8% of people actually pull off their New Year's resolutions. 8%. For the other 92% of us, our present bias wins the fight. But wait, this isn't all bad news. Understanding this battle is not a reason to just give up. In fact, it's the opposite. It's a roadmap that shows us how to set smarter goals, goals that work with our psychology instead of fighting against it. And again, this isn't just wishful thinking. Research from Queen's University Belfast has laid out some really clear, promising ways we can start to overcome our own present bias. The research really boils down to three big ideas. Now, the first one is about targeting interventions, but the next two are things we can all put into practice. Second, we have to design our goals to account for our bias. So instead of only focusing on being healthy 6 months from now, you frame it around the short-term benefits. Think about the energy boost you'll get today, right after your workout. And third, you have to correct for the bias by creating immediate rewards. This can be super simple. Like, you only let yourself watch the next episode of your favorite show after you get back from the gym. You're bridging that gap between the effort and the reward. So, that leaves us with one last question to think about. The January gym rush isn't really about a lack of willpower. It's about a very predictable battle happening in our brains. So knowing that you have a short-term self that craves comfort and a long-term self that wants a better future, how are you going to plan your next fresh start to give your long-term goals a real fighting chance?